And now we're going to move on to our lived experience panel, the highlight of today. I can see Julie in her lovely pink Barbie costume up there. Hello, Julie. And we've got Dan as well and Tate. So welcome to the panel, guys. This is where we talk, from the heart, from some of the people in our community. We call it the lived experience panel. It is fantastic to get this information from health professionals and our learned medical folk, but it's also really absolutely essential to get the perspectives of people living with neuromuscular conditions in our community. So I'd like to introduce our panelists today. We have Tate Jenkins. Tate, you will be able to tell us more about your fantastic career, but it's wonderful to have you here. You're a young man living with SMA, and we are very glad to have you on the panel today. Julie Dong, it's fantastic to have you as well. I will hear a little bit more about the work you're doing in your research and public service career in a little while. And then Daniel, Michelle, where are you, Daniel? Are you in the room? I hope you're there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm up here.
There you are. Wonderful, Dan. I didn't notice you because you weren't wearing green and gold, so you didn't pop out of the session out to me. But it's wonderful to see you today. So I wanted to hear today a little bit about from each of you, and then we've got some general questions as well. So what I'll do is I might just start today with Kate. Kate, tell us about your career journey so far and a little bit about what led up to what you're doing now. Can you tell us all about what's going on for Tate Jenkins?
Yeah, sure. So look, I grew up outside of major cities. So I grew up far north coast of New South Wales. So start of my journey was realistically finishing HSC and then getting to university. So I moved to Sydney straight after year 12 and attended Macquarie University, which had a lot of challenges, particularly, this was early NIS stages. I actually joined the NS just after moving to Sydney. So that was a whole different realm of finding, supports and new care agencies and getting that support network, both formal and informal, set up to really, allow me to really access university and education. And yeah, I think that's obviously a lot easier now with some great initiatives such as SDA housing. I know a lot of people in our community would be familiar with that, and some of the formal supports you can get from the NDIS in that sense, which allow a lot more flexibility and allow that people that need that constant 24-hour kind of support to live independently, which I wish was available when I moved to Sydney for university, as well as setting up obviously the informal supports. And also other support I kind of received throughout that time was some scholarships, which helped me with my independence and being able to live independently, which, as much as it's difficult organizing care, obviously it's very costly to have that independence. So, I think there's definitely should be some awareness that you'd be surprised at a lot of large organizations that can give you supporting scholarships when you decide to go and attend university.
Oh, that's great to hear, Tate, because a lot of people would just think that it's actually just the NDIS that will be able to support you, but you're saying you were able to access some support from both the uni and from other organizations' scholarships. So that's really great for people to look into as well. I'll put some links later on in the notes about some of those scholarships, because we have some young people and parents in the room who might need to be able to applying for those things. So thank you so much. So in terms of, you went to uni, you got your degree, then what happened? What was it like trying to get a job?
Yeah, so I had a very unfortunate timing of finishing my degree just as COVID started. So unfortunately, the entire job market basically dissolved overnight, where no one wanted to take on grads or hire anyone, as they were unsure what was going to happen. After a few months, though, of applying, I was lucky to get opportunity to interview for a few Big Four. So my degree was in commerce with a major in professional accounting. So going into that Big Four space, I was fortunate enough to get a job at KPMG, which was also very daunting. Obviously, going into the job market after never really having formal employment before was very scary, and what that's going to look like with entering the workforce and being in a workplace, and how I'm going to get the supports that I need and access to care throughout the day if that was required, and actually accessing the workplace, physically getting into the building. So I was quite lucky with my experience at KPMG, whereby kind of disclosing just after the interview process I had a disability, and they obviously quite a well-resourced organization, got me on board and got me in before starting the job in the new year, basically to come in early and to have a walk around the workplace, or wheel around rather, and really check out what's going to work for me, what's not, and what changes had to be made. So there's actually a lot of resources for workplaces such as Job Access, which can assist employers with making changes and in the workplace, whether it be like in my instance was adding automated doors to the bathroom, as there was disabled bathrooms, but it's not outdoor automation, which I'm sure almost everyone in this room can agree is well intentioned, however completely useless, as bathrooms are only good when you can actually get into them and use them. I believe they may have contacted Job Access to help with funding for that. But yeah, I think my experience was great, and definitely having that early disclosure after the interview process to really open that discussion about what I was going to need to do my job was definitely very helpful in that process.
And so, yeah, that's really great information. What other tips do you think that you might be able to offer others that are looking at, kickstarting their career?
Yeah, look, I think most workplaces are going to be, really, especially, now in 2023, are really looking forwards to, improving their access for people with disabilities and their diversity in the workforce. And I think, they're just being open about what you'll need, what adaptations you might need for your job, whether it be different working hours or working remotely, being open about that. And most employers, in my experience and some of my colleagues, peers' experience, have been quite open to making sure that you can access the job. At the end of the day, they want you to do a good job because it helps them. They don't want you to be, unsuccessful at your job because, they're still paying you at the end of the day, right? They want you to be perform at your best because that's good for them and good for you. So, but yeah, a few things that I'm sure we're all aware of is, just being very well planned out with what your workday is going to look like and what your supports might need throughout the day, and things like mock runs to check the access and to check transport to your job as well. That's always could be difficult for us getting around. Sometimes trains and driving and parking can be difficult, particularly if you work in the city. So things like mock runs I found really helpful before starting my job to really suss out how I was going to get to the office as well. Really helped me. So those are probably my key tips.
Yeah, good tips, really good information, Tate. We can learn a lot from each other in this Peer Connect world, can't we?
Absolutely.
No, that's really great. All right, well, we'll come back to you in a little while, Tate, but I wanted to go to Julie now. Julie, you're working at the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission now, right? So,
yes.
Yeah, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your background in work and what's led, how have you gotten to that point in your career at this point?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I feel very humbled to still be considered a young leader.
Yeah, you're on the verge, aren't you, Julie?
Yes, but honestly, I feel like I've done a whole 360 in terms of what I wanted to do when I left high school a very long time ago. With my studies and education and just the opportunities and pathways I've taken to get myself into where I am now, which is at the Quality and Safeguards Commission within a research team. Prior to that, I was working in disability policy at the Disability Royal Commission. And when I was very young, I never thought that I wanted to work in the disability space, let alone in policy or research. But it's just sort of led me here based on my lived experience and being able to really value what that brings and how society is finally starting to recognize the voices of people with disability and how they can integrate that and actually see it as a sort of, this is going to make the decisions we make better. So people now are finally really interested to hear from people with disability with all the work that they do. So yes, and before that I was working sort of in the diversity and inclusion space because my master's degree was in commerce and human resources. And yeah, so
you're saying it's
kind
a
of
bit of
where
a
I am.
value add that we can offer, Julie?
Yeah, 100%. I think really now what's happening in Australia, really exciting stuff with the Disability Royal Commission, the NDIS review. Everything is really coming down to these systems are not working because we haven't taken into consideration the needs of the community, the needs of the people that we're actually trying to serve. And so there are going to be heaps of opportunities where people can actually start to talk and have meaningful input to make those decisions, whether it's policy or research priorities, really reflected in the community needs.
So research you mentioned there. So you're not talking about the laboratory research that we were talking about this morning with Michelle and all the research that goes into the actual medical research, but you're talking about research of a different type. So tell us a little bit about the research that you've been involved with.
Yeah, so at work, the research that I'm involved in, or really is about translating that research. So it goes from what is actually, the stuff that the scientific labs might find out, but it has sort of, a meaning to how it might affect the community or what it means for society and how people do things. And so I sort of translate that research into, particularly at the Quality and Safeguards Commission, what providers need to do that is recommended as best evidence because all these other studies have backed up this approach. So I sort of do that, but in my own personal time, I've been a co-researcher, so doing co-design research and writing papers about, we all know peer support is extremely valuable, but it hasn't, the research is sort of, how does this affect society and who else better to involve than actually the people who have used peer support and done peer support. So it's really using people's lived experience to influence that research and recognize that this is working. There are some nuances in being able to understand our community, and somebody who comes in and just studies people with disability don't have that context, and that's what people like us being involved in research can really bring to the conversation and make sure that it does have a place and space in the final paper, which does get read by governments. It does help advocate for our needs as well. Research can be quite powerful in that way. So it really depends on, the purpose of what you want to use the research. And yeah, it's great to be able to do that from a co-design perspective where we even like design what the research question should be because we need more evidence for something that's happening.
And what kind of examples can you give me about this like co-design process? Like what sort of examples of research projects have you been involved with?
Yeah, so my last research project was on peer support for two major organisations in New South Wales. One is there's not a lot of data on diversity. It's quite difficult to get into those communities. And again, that's why you use people who have that experience in the research because they can tap into that network. And so we were, my team of 8 lived experience researchers were involved in actually designing the research questions. So are we actually asking the right questions that are going to be going to give the most meaning? And then we go and interview these people. And, it's different talking to a peer than it is talking to somebody you don't really know. You're able to kind of go into details where that's an important topic or a theme.
Yeah.
And then
They've got the I get you factor, don't they?
yeah, 100%. And then the interpreting of that data as well. Someone without that lived experience might overlook the importance of this or not be able to sort of follow up on that theme and give it the meaning and value it actually needs to have. Yeah, so it's really great. And then a lot of people can get involved in different ways. You don't have to have any experience really because you are just using your lived experience and you're doing it with somebody else with that academic experience to guide you. So yeah, there is that real partnership
Yeah, I can see some parallels with the example this earlier today when we were talking about the power of stories with advocacy and, making sure that we can use our lived experience so that things can, improve and get better, and that services will be more responsive and inclusive.
Yeah.
And yeah, so really powerful stuff, Julie. Thank you so much. That's really great and really interesting to hear the kind of research that you're involved in, and a bit of a shout out to everyone to be involved in that kind of research if they're interested. So yeah, really good. And now, last but definitely not least, our absolute Paralympic champion, our very own Daniel Michelle. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm
you.
not going to tell everyone about you. I want you to tell everyone about you. But basically, you're our boccia superstar, and I wanted you to tell everyone a little bit about how you got involved in boccia.
Yeah, for sure. I think, for me, I grew up in a family that was extremely sporty. I've got a very active mum. I've got a dad who played high-level competitive sport from a young age. Two brothers who are, younger than me and into sport as well. And I think when I was a young kid, I kind of went through that typical phase that I think almost all young kids go through, where they, dream one day of playing for their country in their favourite sport. And, we used to muck around at home with dad in the backyard, playing a bit of footy, rugby league, things like that. And I guess it got to an age, probably when I was around 5 or 6, maybe 7, when I started to realise kind of the impact my disability was going to have on me being able to play sport. And I started to really think that sport wouldn't be an option for me at all, not at whatever level, whether it be just playing with my friends and peers or going on to represent my country, which is my sort of ultimate dream. So to have that taken away at a young age was something that was really devastating to me. And I went through a long period of time of trying to, I guess, find a passion outside of sport. And look, one didn't really exist, to be honest. Going through school and trying to sort of find my way and find what I wanted to do with my life. I think, it was a challenging time until I discovered the sport of boccia when I was 15 years old at a MD New South Wales Come and Try Day. Just by complete chance. I had no idea what the sport was. I'd never heard of it before, never seen it played before. And luckily enough, on that day at the camp, some of the coaches from Boccia New South Wales came out and demonstrated the sport. And I quickly realised that not only was it a sport that I could participate in, but it was a sport that was designed for people exactly like me. So that was a pretty awesome day for me. And kind of from that day on, when I realised the pathway that the sport presented all the way to the top of the Paralympic Games, I kind of dove in.
It ticked a few boxes, did it? You could compete against those brothers of yours and meet your parents' expectations.
Certainly did, yeah, absolutely. I think I always wanted a sport that not only one that I could play, but one that I could excel at, and one that I could take to a very high level if I committed myself and really wanted to do that. So boccia ticked all the boxes for me. And basically the last whatever it is, nearly 12 years of my life now, I've been dedicated to I guess becoming the best boccia player I can be, and that's led me to a couple of Paralympic Games, a bronze medal in Tokyo a couple of years ago. Current world number 1 in the pairs rankings, and pretty awesome
well,
career.
number 1. Well done, Dan. Well done, mate. That's really good. So what is it that you love so much about boccia? I mean, I know you said it was a really good sport in that you could take it to the elite level, but what is it that you enjoy about it or get out of it?
I think there's that aspect, and that was probably the most important aspect to me was, hey, this is just, man, like the bar was so low. I was coming from a bar of, I couldn't play a single sport at all. So hang on, here's a sport I can play. My God, that's awesome. I don't care what the sport is. I'm gonna do it. But then on top of that, I think I developed a real appreciation for the strategic, tactical, and just mental aspect of the game. It's a game of it really is a game of strategy, and one that you need to really think your way through and apply yourself to in a lot of ways to become good at. So I think that intellectual challenge definitely appealed to me as well. Yeah.
And so for those, I mean, most people know about boccia, and if you don't, this is a little lesson 101. So
Mm.
how is bocce strategic, Dan? What's the sort of, give everyone a little picture of the point of bocce?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, objectively, it's a pretty simple game. So the idea is to land your coloured balls as close as possible to a target ball that we call the jack, and you win the game by getting more balls closer to that jack than your opponent. But beneath kind of that sort of basic objective, there's a lot of strategy in terms of how that actually takes place on the court. So it's a bit different to some of the other games that are similar to it, like bowls, where you alternate throws. In bocce, whoever's furthest away from the jack continues to play until they get closer to the jack. So
I was going to call it the cool version of bowl.
So there's a lot of strategy in terms of how you want to set your positions up and how you want to block your opponent and things like that to make it really difficult for them to win. And yeah, there's a lot of dynamic shot making. There's different ball types. You've got softer balls, harder balls, everything in between. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to structure your game, and you can think about different things and what balls you want to use and where you want to play your jack. And there's a lot of different things that you can sort of think about to give yourself the best chance.
Yeah, and look, highly recommend for people to get involved in bocce, whether it's as a spectator or as a supporter, volunteer, or even playing themselves. So where would you suggest people start getting involved in that way, Dan? Have you got?
Yeah, well, look, there's been a big push over recent years from Bocce Australia and from the state bodies as well to get more clubs up and running, because I think when I first started playing, there was basically nowhere to play. I mean, I found the sport, and the first thing I wanted to know was, okay, where can I play? And quickly found out there was nothing anywhere near me where I could go and play the sport. So I had to do it all on my own, and pretty much everyone who has started bocce up until now has had to do that. But fortunately, in the last few years, there's been a lot more clubs getting up and running around the states. So I encourage you to probably contact your local or your state bodies, so Bocce New South Wales in New South Wales, and Bocce Victoria, and so on and so forth down the line. And they'd be able to direct you towards your closest club. And there's a chance there's one that would be quite close to you.
Yeah, and we can put people in touch with those organisations. So yeah, thanks, Dan. That's awesome. And have you got your bronze medal anywhere in distance? You got a whole cabinet of trophies?
Yeah, it's up on the trophy cabinet, so I can't grab that one for you.
That's fine. No worries, mate. We'll share some of your glory. We often do on social media. So
Sure.
Thank you so much, mate. No, it's so good that you found like your purpose. Like the three of you have really, I think, you're thriving and achieving, and it's because you've found your passions, and they're all really different. So it's really great. I did have some questions for all of the panel. So, as much as I'm saying, you've found your passion and you're achieving amazing things, let's not sugarcoat it. Life with a neuromuscular condition does have its challenges, right? So like, what sort of challenges do you feel like are the tricky ones? Julie, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I think for me it was a lot of self-doubt. Obviously maybe a lot of that came from family as well, because your family wants you to be healthy and not exert yourself, not do too many things that are going to make you tired. So I think for me, it was sort of like doubting whether I could work as much as I do.
Yeah, well, you
And
certainly proved that you can, Julie, because like you were working for
yeah,
long hours of the night last night, right?
yes. But it's also, I guess, comes from the fact that there is that so much stigma and plain discrimination out there getting into the workforce, that you feel like you have to prove yourself and you feel like they've done you a favor, and it's sort of a real internalized ableism that you just need to do more to prove that they made a good decision on you. And that's been really difficult. Yeah, it is a challenge when, yeah.
Yeah, how do you go about like sort of dealing with those challenges or doubts?
Yeah, I mean, some days, like, I mean, they just creep up more than others.
Mm,
I guess how I deal with those challenges is sort of, you have your friends, you have your peers to talk about that, especially peers with disability. They will really get it. They'll understand that experience of having to work harder as well, sort of trying to show that you're not as disabled as everybody thinks you are, and that you can do everything else like another person can,
mm,
who doesn't have a disability.
yeah.
And I think it's just constant, like, I know it's my own self-doubt because I've never been caught up on, bad work or, anything like that. It's always just lots of compliments from other people. It's just me having to go through it and like, just shift my mindset that, yeah, this is a me thing.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
yeah, and that helps because, yeah, I like to keep a little folder in my work inbox that is like nice feedback to me. So anyone who says nice things, I just put it in there. So if I'm having a bad day, I can read it where people have said, great work. I
Oh,
really
that's a
like
great
this.
idea. I think we should all have a nice things box
Yeah.
in our inbox. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for sharing that. That's really great. And what about you guys? Like, what sort of challenges do you relate to what Julie's saying, or is there
Yeah.
other challenges for you guys?
Oh, definitely. I'll probably just piggyback on what Julie said and just touch on a little bit. Also, I think in terms of the stigma and the way that people with disability are viewed by society, there's such a low bar of expectation as in terms of what society expects or believes that people with disability are able to achieve. I think everyone here today will have an anecdote relating to times when they've been congratulated on completing the most mundane daily task. I can't count the number of times when I'm out and about and someone will just come past and say, "Good on you, mate," or "Well done, mate," stuff like that. Just walking down the road or being on a train or whatever it is. And I think it's difficult to deal with a lot because obviously there are physical challenges. There are many challenges that come to being someone with a severe impairment, a disability like SMA. But I think in life, everyone has their own challenges. Everyone has their own challenges, whether you're disabled or not. And I think what it comes down to is the processes and things you put in place so that you're able to live your best life. And for us, it's no different to anyone else dealing with whatever challenges they're dealing with in their lives. And we have the same goals and dreams and aspirations as any other person. And we personally don't view our disabilities as being barriers to that. And hopefully, it's not too long till maybe society recognises that a bit more too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Dan. Thank you for that. And what about to you, Tate? I did neglect to mention that you are one of our wonderful board members. So thank you for your service as well as all your career achievements. It's wonderful that you're giving back to the community. But in terms of challenges for you, Tate, what do you think are some of the tricky ones?
Yeah, look, I think firstly, just to echo both Dan and Julie, it absolutely is that kind of stigma, and I think there is sometimes a perception of people that you've only got or earned what you've had in your career because of your disability, or you get a leg up. I don't think they seem to understand how much you have to overcome just to start your career and actually start down your journey of success. And there's definitely that stigma of you're only there because you make a number somewhere in someone's report. But look, I think one of the main difficulties that I find, and I'm sure, again, this is something everyone can relate to in this room, is getting that reliable care team to kind of really support you in your journey. And, obviously, if your carers are late or don't show up, that means that you're late or you don't show up to work. And when you've got a boss or someone who needs you to be there to do your job, it can be quite difficult and sometimes have difficult conversations. I know for me, I just recently changed care teams as I moved to a different area, and that's been quite difficult to get that good care team back together. That means that they show up when I expect them, which means that I show up when my workplace expects me to. So I'm sure we can all relate to that. It's very frustrating and is a never-ending battle, but it's something that I definitely find difficult is not just finding ones that are going to turn up, but also are going to do a good job when they do turn up. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Tate. That is an endless job for us to continue recruiting and managing our care teams, and yeah, definitely an extra component of our lives that most other people don't need to do. So yeah, absolutely, thank you for that. They're really insightful comments from all of you guys. I just wanted to ask you guys what or who has helped you along your journey to being a young leader and being so successful and achieving things. Like, what is it that you could say has been really critical in being a positive thing?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. Why not? Yeah, I think. Look, I think enough can't be said about just the importance of having a really good example set at a young age for my family. I'm super fortunate that I was brought up in a family, my mum in particular, who has always encouraged me to not see my disability as a barrier, to try things in life, to to never be, I guess, to never settle or think that I can't do something because of my disability. We always found ways to do things differently, modify things. She was always really big on my participation in all things in life. And I think that's something that I've, my kind of view of the world and my view of my place in the world is really founded on that belief that I can give anything a go, and I'm not going to be intimidated by obstacles and by things that may make life a bit more difficult for me. I'm just going to find ways to overcome those. And yeah, I think that just comes straight from her. So I can't really be more grateful than I am to have been brought up that way.
Fantastic, Dan. Yeah, always got to thank our mums. Thank you. And what about you, Tate?
Yeah, look, I think mine's very similar to Dan. I think having a really great support network around you, whoever that may be, is really important. And for me, that was my parents, and they were really supportive of me from a young age. Very similar to Dan's experience with, not seeing anything as a barrier or too hard, just supporting me in any way they could and pushing me to really give everything a go and not, listen to people that says you can't do this or that's too difficult or, there's no way you ever be able to live independently, and people who just put everything in the too hard basket. I think I definitely found that almost anything can be achieved as long as it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you can definitely find ways to work around. And I think just having that mindset from the get go from my parents to really push me to not give up and just have a go and do my best, and whatever challenges you face, you kind of work through them as they come. So
yeah,
that's definitely something
nice one,
that's
yeah.
important
So
for me.
challenges are just problems that need a solution, right? So
Exactly.
we become pretty good at problem solving, don't we? Yeah,
absolutely.
really good. Yeah. And what about you, Julie? Who or what has supported you along the journey? And what? Yeah.
I couldn't really attribute it to one person. I think it was just I don't know, just so many different things that have come into my life. And I guess one of them is being surrounded by the right people. It took me a while to discover who are the keepers in my life. Like, especially now that I'm a lot older, you want to surround yourself by people who are going to be there for you, but also not be afraid to like challenge you or give you like actual critical feedback. I think there's this sort of like, oh, you have a disability, you have to be nice to you, but that's never going to challenge you, and it's never really going to open up opportunities for you if you're always sort of given. So I found the right people out there who do recognize sort of, hey, there's something there, and then being able to tap into that.
Yeah, it's good to have the real people, isn't it? And genuine people in your lives. Yeah, no, really great, guys. Yeah. And what about this last one? I've got what tips have you got for people out there? Like, we've got families in the room, we've got health professionals, we've also got other adults with neuromuscular conditions. So what other tips might you have for young people or anyone really, in terms of what's a good message to remember?
I think like especially to like clinicians, parents as well. just literally on the back of what we were just talking about, how important it is to really empower people with disabilities to believe that they can achieve things in life, and to not try to place limiting, I guess, ideas upon them. So many times I've seen, people with disabilities wrapped in cotton wool by clinicians, by family, trying to protect them from the world, trying to, thinking that they're not going to be able to do anything, and the best thing to do is keep them at home and make sure nothing bad happens to them. But that's not living life. That's not living life. That's no way to experience life, I think. And to just really, to get out there and encourage everyone to give things a go. And when challenges arise, I mean, sometimes you're going to run into things that maybe you can't do, but who cares? You gave it a go. Move on to the next thing. Just trying to mollycoddle and protect is not the best way to enable the person with a disability to live their life in the best way.
Yeah, bit of resilience building does wonders, Dan.
Sure. Absolutely.
Excellent. And what about you, Tate? Will I go to you next?
Sure. Yeah. Look, I think as people with disabilities, sometimes you can have a lot of anxiety and nervousness about trying new things and breaking out of your mold and pushing yourself to whether that's go live independently or move on to further education or employment. But I think being a very good planner, being very planning is something that's helped me a lot to really look at to break everything down into its components and plan it out as much as possible before I get to that point, and then have contingencies in place that really helps you have that fallback and make sure that anything you may foresee going wrong doesn't really happen, and you do your best to avoid any difficult situations. But it's something I found I think we can all echo back to, is just having that sometimes that anxiety about pushing your boundaries a bit and seeing what you can do independently and what opportunities you can excel at. But just having that planning mindset and really looking at all the contingencies you can put in place to make sure you're comfortable and you have that ability to try new things is important for me personally.
Good one, Tate. Breaking things down, I like that. Breaking it into little manageable pieces, I like that. Julie, what about you? Have you got any tips for people out there, or words of wisdom to finish off with?
I think it's recognizing that you actually have value, like just reflecting on when I was a young person, and I was a very shy young person, and I always was too scared to speak up, and I was always said yes to everything, but really the time here is not going to get any better, I think, in terms of people with disability having a platform. All eyes are on the opportunities going forward, how to make Australia a better place, and then how we can actually contribute, and finding those opportunities. And really the best way to do that is just by talking to people. Like, you find out so many things. I know, Carolyn, you've been always sending me opportunities. Hey, think about this and that. And that really, has been super helpful. But that also comes with needing to, just being able to value yourself and your time and your knowledge and your experiences, and that,
Absolutely. That's a really good message to end in. Thank you, Julie. I'd just like to thank you for your time, Tate and Dan. The three of you have been awesome today. Thank you for being such great young leaders in our community. It's really good as an old chick like me to know that there's younger ones coming up, and you guys are going to take the reins in terms of being leaders in our community, and not just in our community, but in the broader community as well. So, well done on everything you've achieved so far. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. And I just wanted to open up to questions from the audience before we wrap up the whole day, which is going to be good because it's been a long day. We've been online for 4 hours now. So is there any questions or comments that people wanted to give feedback to the presenters? Is anybody putting their hands up? Jess, Charlotte? Perhaps the other presenters have feedback for our young leaders. Perhaps, Gabrielle, thank you for asking questions. It's always lovely when someone asks a question.
Thank you. That was so interesting and informative. Really appreciate it. Hearing about your stories. About from a parent's perspective, with a son who has FSHD and is starting to have trouble and starting to have challenges. He's in the early stages, but it is progressing. My sort of encouragement to him is like, do it all now. Get out there. Do your travel. If you're thinking about it, don't hold off. Just do it. And his sort of reaction is, well, it's not going to be so bad. I'll be okay. Don't push me. It's okay. Any advice from that kind of perspective? Like, I don't want to. Does that?
I mean, my thoughts would be within reason, do it all. Like you can't do everything all at once. You'll be exhausted and fall in a heap.
Yeah.
But certainly, I think, the COVID thing sort of sent us a lot of good lessons about not putting things off and doing things that are important to you. So everyone manages that differently. So you might manage it a bit differently to your son, Gabrielle. But what about other people? Does anyone else want to have a go at that one? We all have progressive conditions and we our abilities and functions will change over the years, but we're certainly not life limited like we were a few years ago. There's a lot more treatment services and lots of different supports now available that have never been available before. So I think there's a bit of a balance somewhere in the middle there about doing it all and not taking on everything. So it's worth considering and talking to peers. And I think when Julie was saying how important that is to find peers that will be able to support you with those kinds of decisions and hear their experiences. How's it been for other people?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gabrielle. That's a good question, but a tricky one to answer.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. Thank you.